Leave. Dear Faster community members and all watchers audience for FinTech panel, now we started our panel and then we want to make two panel and 2 hour with together with you, and we want to analyze as new year, as last year, during the pandemic, as very interesting times we are passing, and of course digital solutions help us during the last year, I mean 2020. So as last new year, and hope to all new good things and injections and cures of this virus will help us. And as you know, finance world and together with technology world is changing our lives, and many new things and many new opportunities come. Not only digital economy issues that we are talking about, but also even apps affecting our lives, as usually daily use of our now standard that everyone has got a smartphone, or no, or some countries maybe smartphone ratio has lower than standards, but they are coming on board. So digital life, digital expectation, and digital standards now affecting all of us. And then
Brother Mustafa, I don't know. I need to bring to your attention that your voice is low.
Okay, let me change something. If
I don't know if the others noticed that, but I noticed it.
Yes.
No, but audible.
how is now? Test. Shukran,
I think it's better.
Shukran Gezilan for this. And then now to the first panel of FinTech panel is we want to talk about finance and Islamic finance in general. And our speakers, Lady Fatin from Oman and Kaiser Bey from Dubai, they will mention about themselves. And then before their speech started, Bassem is as co-founder of Faster Community, want to mention about Faster Community panels and events that fastly, and then we want to go on with our panels. Bassem, please, you can.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you for joining FinTech panel today. My name is Bassem Al Dahab. I would like just to mention about our Faster community, one of the fastest communities growing in FinTech industry and AI. And we are welcoming, and we have the pleasure to welcome all the new members in our community. Our community focusing on highlighting the industry and helping people to join and participate and exchange the experiences and their achievements with other members. As my colleague Mr. Mustafa mentioned, that we are now planning to host on 3rd of March Telecom Prize, and we have about 15 different categories, and we would like to welcome all the applicants and members who would like to join and participate and nominate their organization in this Telecom Prize, which we will announce the winners on 3rd of March. The registration in this prize is open, and we are receiving different applicants from different countries, and you are welcome to join this prize now. Thank you, Mustafa.
Most welcome, Bassem, and Shukran for your joining and about Faster Community. Let's continue with our speakers. Lady Fatin, welcome again our panels, and we want to hear from you your point of view, Islamic finance instruments and expectations and developments about Islamic finance.
Certainly. First of all, very welcome to all of the guests who are joining us from all around the world. I'm very pleased and honored to be invited to deliver my point of view when it comes to Islamic finance, and as well the potential in the MENA region, and specifically the GCC and the Sultanate of Oman in particular. So my name is Dr. Fatin Azajali. I am the acting assistant dean of the College of Banking and Financial Studies, and I'm currently as well the head of Islamic finance in the college. I'm a PhD myself in Islamic finance, and when we are talking about Islamic finance, we have to understand the three most important pillars explaining Islamic finance. So first is the fact that every asset has a value, and for that, any transaction in the Islamic atmosphere must be derived from the value of that particular asset. In addition to that is the screening process. We insist on having a screening process in which we ensure that the products and services we purchase are of a halal nature, or as we call it, Sharia compliant. And of course, we have the profit and loss sharing mechanisms in which fintech can actually help us to, reduce the intermediation costs and provide opportunities as well for the whole, Muslim Ummah to participate in this with these financial innovations and technology. And for instance, I'll give you the example of Oman. When we started Islamic finance, the growth rate was amazing, and that is because of the demand for that particular services and products. Now, with financial technology, it reduces, the intermediation costs. It allows everyone to be on board. And when it comes to the MENA region, we have young generation, and they are tech savvy. They would like to use these particular technologies and, enhance the experience in payment systems. So the growth rate, I see a lot of potential. For instance, in Oman, if I'm speaking only about the penetration rate in terms of mobile, smartphone, access, we have 101%, people with full access to, their smartphones, using it in daily basis to make, payments, to make transfers, remittances. Thus, I can see the growth is huge for the, the GCC and the MENA region as well.
Shukran, Lady Fatin, about this brief starting. Let's continue with Kaiser Bey. Mr. Kaiser, can you, as entrance, mention about your point of view for your region, what you are thinking and seeing about Islamic finance?
Thanks a lot, Mustafa Bey. And let me also add my thanks to, FAST community, of which I'm a very, very recent member. And of course, very welcome to all the guests that are present here. It is an honor to be on this platform and to be talking about a very, I think, interesting, enlightening part of the financial sector, which is Islamic finance. As a background, I mean, you said speak about myself also a little bit. So I'm an international development banker. I've been working for different institutions, but mostly the World Bank Group for about more than 25 years, so more than half my career. And I worked in different jurisdictions, including Oman, of course, and we worked a lot on Islamic finance in Oman when it was started in 2008 and 9, and when we moved from not using the word Islamic for banks, and I was involved in all that, but mostly with Bank Sohar and Bank Muscat. They had a department. I think now they've spun it off. I'm not sure what happened with it. So yeah, Islamic finance has been part of my journey of developing, economies from Central Asia to Middle East to South Asia to Africa. But that's been just a small part. I've also worked a lot in SME development. Again, Bank Muscat, Women Bank. I'm sure, Fatin, you're familiar with that.
Of course.
That was introduced by IFC when we were working with them. I think this was 2010 and 11. The last 5 or 6 years, to cut it short, I've been mostly focusing on digital transformation of financial institutions mainly. And the reason for that was because, as a development banker, our objective has always been whenever we intervene or engage with client countries or private sector institutions, the underlying objective is to enhance the outreach of these financial institutions so that they can create jobs, which would result in poverty alleviation. And for that, SMEs and micro and financial inclusion, of course, we all know that is very important. So that's always been the focus. And when digital came in 10 years ago, I mean, it's probably been there longer, but people started sort of talking about it maybe 2014 or 15, actually, not even 10 years ago. So we thought in the World Bank Group, and I'm sure everyone else, that this is an excellent tool if we're talking about outreach. And I think, Fatih, you mentioned it also, which can facilitate that outreach. You can have better outreach and faster outreach and more accurate outreach because of using technology. So that's basically what I've been working for in the last 5, 7, 8, 10 years, I would say. Actually, not even 10 years, 5 to 7 years. And a lot of interest. I mean, I'm very interested in that, and I've seen a big shift in where we were 6 years ago in terms of the financial sector leveraging technology, and where we are till 2019, and where we are today because of what happened in 2020. We can talk about that as well. Coming to Islamic, I have some views on that. They may not be conventional, but first of all, let me just put this into context that when we talk about fintechs, so I don't know whether we should differentiate Islamic fintech or non-Islamic fintech. That's probably not the issue at all. The issue is within the context of financial sector, you are leveraging technology. So if it's an Islamic bank, you leverage technology for delivering your Islamic products, on which I also have a view. And that view stems from, I mean, for just setting the stage, and probably that's what I will be talking about. Around 2001, I'm not exactly sure when, I was asked a question on live TV. There was an interview in a different context. It was more on SMEs. This was in Pakistan. And the question was, what do you think about Islamic banking? And the reason was that in Pakistan, there was a revival. We had in 1980s, we set up Islamic banks, and then everything fizzled out, and then, the usual story. So my response then, and I think it still is the same response, unfortunately today, was that Islamic banking or Islamic finance is applicable to an Islamic society, right? If you have an Islamic environment, an Islamic society, then you have Islamic finance. I don't really see that we have any Islamic society in most countries. We are not following any Islamic principles, at least not in Pakistan in those days, and even today, in terms of the way we live our lives, in the terms of way we conduct our business, in terms of the way we interact with people. Not much of that has to do with Sharia, with Islamic, or with values at all. Forget even religion, but the common values. So unless you have that, because the premise of Islamic finance is trust. You need to trust each other, right? Because you're investing in some entity on some sort of a promise that because of my labor and your money, we will double it or triple it or whatever, and then we'll share in the profit. So this element of trust. So we don't have that trust. So that was my answer, that you cannot have Islamic banking. And today I hold that. So that is what we should be building today. Unfortunately, even in 2021, we have not built that. We talk about growth rates, that, wow, we've been growing at 16%. It was in 2017 or 2018. I think now it's 7 or 8%, the growth of Islamic finance overall. Still, if you put it in perspective, it is 3% of the total banking and financial assets of the world. 3%, even if the growth is 17%. So we're starting from a very low level. That's number one. Number two is most of those assets, by the way, are just banking assets. So what happened to private equity? We'll talk about that when we talk about fintechs. What happened to asset management? What happened to takaful insurance? It's probably 2% or 3%, or maybe I'm being harsh, 10% of the assets of Islamic, which we are saying are growing. It's what, 4 trillion, Fatin, correct me if I'm wrong, dollars today? Only 10% are non-banking.
And what happened to Waqf as well? And what happened to Waqf as well?
What happened to Waqf? So, and even these 80% of the banking assets are two products. Fatin, you'll bear me on that. It's Murabaha and Mudaraba.
Yes, exactly.
Because it's easy to structure. So we're caught in that circle. So I think that is the issue we should be talking about. Once we have the products, Islamic products, we can leverage technology any way we like. That's not an issue at all. Okay, now coming to fintechs, they are Islamic fintechs, so-called Islamic fintechs, but they have the same issues. So I think I think there are about 150 Islamic fintechs. We call them Islamic in the world today. This is the latest research I read maybe a few months ago. Under 150. Most of them are in Malaysia. I think the second highest number are in the UK, and the third is probably in the Middle East. I think GCC mostly. So we have fintechs. What's Islamic about them? I'm not sure, except the fact that they are working with an Islamic bank, perhaps. Now, whether that product which that Islamic bank is giving out to its clients is Islamic or not is a different issue, and I'll have Fatin speak about that because it's, I don't know, a recent comment of mine and it's an old saying that you're holding your ears like that. So because we know that, so that actually is the issue that we should be talking about. And I'm not an expert on Islamic finance, by the way. I worked in that area, but I'm not a scholar on Islamic finance like Dr. Fatin is. So she'll have more view. But being a Muslim, being someone who has read the Quran, being someone who knows that interest is haram. So how do you then implement economy where you have Sharia compliant products, you have Sharia compliant? Our excuse is that we're working in this economy and it will take us time before we can get rid of convention. So I heard that in 1990 or maybe 1980. I started my career in, what was that, 1979. So 1980, I heard that. Oh yeah, it's the start of Islamic, so we need a benchmark. So we had a benchmark, which was the interest rate or the LIBOR. But today is 2021, and we're still saying the same thing. That is the issue. And I know we have experts on this panel. I might be very radical, but these are the issues that I have actually. So when I worked in Central Asia, because I've been after, when we go into countries as World Bank, by the way, I retired. I mean, I should have mentioned that also. I sit on boards now. So that's what I wanted to do, to sit on 3, 4, 5 boards as an independent director in different countries. And, provide guidance or share experience, basically, not provide guidance. But what I've learned in my 40 years in areas of corporate governance and ethics and SME development and digital transformation. So because that's the best platform you have to influence a company, from my point of view, having that. So I sit on boards. So one of the boards is Uzbekistan. And Uzbekistan, we had been trying, the reason as IFC and being a Muslim and from Pakistan, I wanted them to get into Islamic finance way back in the early 2000s. And the name of the president was Islam Karimov at that time. And he was totally anti-Islam. He actually said in a conference that of international investors at one time, Islam Karimov said that people think we're an Islamic country, but let me make it clear, we are not an Islamic country. So don't be scared of us. That's what he said, the president of an Islamic country, where 90% of the people are Muslims. This was way back again in the early 90s. Today, they are going into Islamic finance. So we've done surveys, we've done a market study. I did that in Kyrgyzstan and in Uzbekistan and in Kazakhstan. There's a huge demand for that. So now it's being set up. But the point is, we're going to set up something for them, which is not totally Islamic. so I mean, again, that's the issue. Let me just stop here because I
think it's an argument. Yeah, I think that there are points that you have mentioned that I agree upon 100% on, and some of the things that I would actually challenge you on that. Although we are in the same team, this is the regular argument of substance over form or form over substance. I mean, this is a classical argument that we all the time, in conferences and summits discuss about them. Shall we concentrate on the way the form should be done? I mean, the screening, or shall we really concentrate on the substance of the Islamic finance product? And as you have rightly said, in fact, one of the pillars that I have mentioned is the profit and loss sharing. And you mentioned wonderful products in the Islamic financial instruments, such as waqf, zakat, musharaka, mudaraba. Where is that element? In fact, I believe that since FinTech is on board, we can activate it in a very clever way, because the fact that the banks are not interested to finance these projects is because it is too risky. In fact, some of the Islamic banks have 300% risk rate in musharaka-based products or mudaraba-based. So when it comes to FinTech, that intermediation is simpler and it's less expensive. And this is the whole issue with investment. You know, you have to have a range of investment options. You have to have, you know, the credit worthiness of this particular project. FinTech allows us to, you know, see everything from one whole point of view. And I'm going to give you an example of what's happening in Oman. In Oman, the Central Bank of Oman is doing, you know, a credit rating initiative called Mala'a, in which the know your customer approach is happening to the extent that you understand the history of this customer, how many you know, loans he probably had, you know, the kind of collateral that he has. All of this information and data, if it's presented to the key decision maker, it makes it easy through fintech to grant that particular person further access to finance or not. With reference to the you know, the argument of, you know, I think that there is no difference between fintech and you know, fintech is nothing related to Islamic finance. I would challenge you in one question. What if the lender, suppose I am a customer who wants to access you know, finance, and you are in the bank, and my project is, I would like to you know, receive funding for a non-Sharia compliant activity like a winery, or, you know, that's interesting. You know, I'm just giving you that scenario. So I think we should balance it, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, is the balancing between the form and substance argument. Because to be honest, if and this is what I noted scholars over and over discuss, is you know, some actually say the substance is more important. So we have to offer more you know, equity based products, or no, the form is more important. So we stick to that vicious cycle of, you know, giving debt and debt only, and at the end of the day we see what are we actually doing different when it comes to the economic value creation to the economy itself, or the country itself, or the jurisdiction where you are at. So it's an interesting argument. Certainly there is no one solution to it. But we can argue as much as we can and see how we can go forward. For me, I think fintech is holding the key for you know, more options. As we have been discussing with Brother Mustafa Kugu earlier, I mean, the world is becoming borderless, and it's interesting. More innovation, more opportunity to penetrate other markets. E-payment is becoming huge. Mobile payments is becoming huge. In fact, in Oman, we are, the Central Bank of Oman is doing something called the RTGS, which is the real-time gross settlement system. It's a totally mobile-enabled system in Oman. And we are, according to His Excellency Saadat Amr Tahir Al-Amri in Oman, he mentions that we are the first GCC country to embed this mobile payment technology. So let us see and how things are going to grow moving forward.
Most welcome and sharings with your how can I say, very good approach and experiences about your region and your experiences, Kaysar Bey and Lady Fatin. Let me also now join us from Malaysia or Nigeria. I am not sure because he always changing between these far areas for me. Then both sides is far. Yeah, Nigeria also far me. Malaysia is far me. For me, yani far for me. So Mustafa Akil Nasso is a Nigerian finance specialist, and then now his PhD degree on NCF, one of the well-known education academic institution in Malaysia. Mustafa Bey, can you brief about you? And you are very interesting for us because Islamic finance, what is the issue and status of Islamic finance in Africa, especially in Africa? Let us know about this Africa Islamic finance, what you are seeing and according to your point of view. Your voice.
Okay. Am I audible now? I hope so. Okay,
Now,
great. Anyway, thank you, Brother Mustafa Kugu. And apologies for being late to Mr. Kaiser and Dr. Fatin, my colleague from INTF and a colleague at Islamic Finance Chamber, and Mohammed Khatib as well. Apologies for being late, and to the audience. Really, the topic, the discussion is quite interesting, talking about Islamic finance and talking about fintech. And I tell you, both are relatively new compared to the traditional system of finance as we know it. And of course, Mr. Kaiser, from the little that I'm able to meet up in your discussion, you're quite an old goon with regards to this. You're far experienced, and we could definitely leverage that. What I see here is, before jumping to the discussion that Brother Mustafa Kogo, if I may just react to the dialogue that I met on ground. The discussion about Islamic finance, how it is practiced right now, and how it was intended from the get-go, and say what it will look like in the future. And the question of form over substance, which comes first or which should prevail. I think, as Dr. Fatin has put it, it remains debatable. It depends on which perspective we want to take it from. And scholars have argued back and forth. One thing that resonates with me in all their argument is that Islamic finance is still an evolving sector. No matter how we argue it back and forth, we can already see how fast things are changing and how fast things are improving. And we can see the potential when we add up technology to it, and we can see that things that seem unattainable before, using Islamic mode of financing, is now at our fingertip with thanks to the help of technology. And I can already see, or we can all see, several startups coming up, leveraging technology to deliver the value of Islamic finance. Now, substance over form, I would say the argument should be more about the value proposition of Islamic finance itself. Going by the substance, most of the time we will end up looking like or imitating the conventional financial system as it is. We want to create debt. It's all about credit, economy, and so on. We'll just be going through that. We'll be trying to use risk sharing and all these techniques, but eventually the result will be the same. But if we want to really go for substance over form, then we mean regardless of the contract that is being used, we want the economic result to be such that reduce debt in the system. But the question is debt evil? Well, that again, it's a debate. It depends on who you ask, or it depends on the perspective that you look at it. Debt can be a very essential or a necessary financial tool for an economy. But at the same time, it could also be a detrimental tool that will bring down economy. We've seen that nations have been enslaved financially. Sovereignty has been taken away through debt. But at the same time, nations have been saved from the brink of failure through debt. So again, it depends on which side of the debate or which perspective applies to you at what time and at what state of the economy. Now, without pressing much on that, I will go straight to Brother Mustafa Kogo's question or insight, so to say, with regards to Islamic finance in Africa. Well, Africa is a very interesting continent. Not many people know that. People see Africa as a continent of poverty, impoverishment, lack of infrastructure, and many things, barbaric human beings and so on. But again, it depends on who you ask, and it depends on the kind of eye lens that person is looking. In Africa, we see opportunity, we see growth. Take account of our population. 1.7 billion people. Take account of the demograph. We have a growing youth population, far greater than any other continent in the world. Take a look at our culture or ethnic diversity. We are a very diverse nation, 54 countries, but ethnicity is in thousands. But at the heat of it is this social cohesiveness that exists in our cultures, which is what I would tell you that most fintechs are banking on. Africa today is known for mobile money financial technology. What is the major driver of that? It's really nothing but trust. And this trust exists as a result of the social cohesiveness that we have in our culture, where this one will send money to this one and that person believe. Really, no finance without trust. Remove trust from the concept of banking and the building is all you have. And that's if the building is still standing. So Africa has that. Now, that said, from the last decade, say 2010 to 2020, we have seen a number of growing Islamic finance initiatives. More Islamic banks are springing up on the African continent. Whether you want to call it participatory bank, as it's been called in most parts of Northern Africa, or you want to call it a non-interest financing, or a non-interest banking as it's been called in West Africa here. Nigeria, for instance, is one. Or you want to call it an Islamic bank as it is, or you want to call it an Islamic capital market. It is growing in numbers. We have more players in different parts of the world, or in different parts of the continent, rather, excuse me, than we had previously. And more are coming up. And I'll give you an example. Back in 2011, in Nigeria precisely, we had one Islamic bank. We have a couple of windows, Islamic banking windows, but as of last year, we've had another full-fledged Islamic bank, Taj. We have Jaiz and Taj, but they are not the only one. We have other banks. Sterling, they have their own Islamic banking window. We have SunTrust, they have their own Islamic banking window. Now, before that's on the banking side. Looking to the capital market, we had just one player, which is a capital, not to mention the name per se, but we had just one, capital market player. But now we've had a lot of, I think 3 of them already on board, and more are coming. We have a lot of fintech initiatives, Islamic finance, Islamic fintech initiatives coming up. So in Nigeria, it's growing, and so it is across Africa. We have an Islamic neobank coming out of Uganda. We have a payment system based on Sharia compliant contracts, coming out of Eastern African countries. So yes, in general, Islamic finance is booming, and not just these examples that I've mentioned are all about the industry players. But in terms of regulations, how are regulators reacting to the growth of Islamic finance? Several regulations have sprung up. For you to establish a bank, an Islamic bank, you definitely have to be regulated. And for that, there has to be regulation in place to support the nature of the transactions for Islamic banks. So many African countries have been able, central banks have been able to do that. Many of them are members of the Islamic Financial Services Board, the IFSB, which is the international financial regulatory, plays a regulatory role for all jurisdictions, Islamic banking or Islamic finance across all jurisdictions. They focus on banking, on insurance, as well as the capital market, and now fintech as well. So they provide prudential regulations to govern Islamic financial transactions in different jurisdictions. So we have many African countries or African regulators, be they regulators of the banks, the central bank, regulators of the capital market, or regulators of the insurance and pension commissions. We have them being members of this body. So this is a significant agent for growth, or this is one of the ways they are reacting. Besides that, providing incentives, sandboxes, providing enabling an enabling environment or infrastructure for Islamic financing to take place. A recent example, again, which I would cite, maybe Nigeria, because I'm Nigerian and I'm very much more familiar with the landscape here, is during the COVID-19, when palliative or financial incentive or economic palliative were dished out. The system is built on conventional financing. Islamic finance is merely 5% of, it's not up to 2%, sorry, forgive me, not up to 2% of the conventional system. So the credits and grants that were issued were all issued based on a conventional system. But the regulators in these markets are able to cater for the Islamic customers or Islamic finance customers through the few Islamic banks that we're having and through the few Islamic financial institutions they're able to, so the first round was all general, all conventional, but on a second note, they came back and they, did something. So that's some positive reaction or response for Islamic finance from the regulatory side. As far as customers are concerned, yes, there's a growing user base of Islamic financial services across the continent. Most cases is as a result of religious conviction earlier on. And this brings about the issue of which comes first, my religious conviction, I don't want to take interest-based income, or I want service that is excellent, an efficient service delivery, qualitative service delivery. At the early stage, quite honestly, there were a few issues with the Islamic financial institutions in terms of quality of service. But over time, we've seen that grow. We've seen them and develop, we've seen them evolve in terms of service quality. They've improved. And now the user base is not only growing as a result of religious conviction, we have people comparing notes with regards to the pricing, with regards to the contracts, financial contracts, with regards to the service delivery. And both the Muslim or the Islamic adherents and the non-Islamic adherents, it makes no difference. They're all, drilling towards various Islamic financial services, which is a good thing. Which in some, I will say, Islamic finance is growing in leaps and bounds in Africa as much as it is in other parts of the world. Say, be it in Malaysia or in the GCC where Dr. Fatin is from. This would be my, quick remarks with regards to the growth of Islamic finance in Africa.
Most welcome, Mr. Mustafa, about this issue, and we are familiar with you about Africa perspective of Islamic and fintech perspective. Thank you again. Your sharings about Africa, even culture, how many country in Africa and how many we are familiar. Very nice for me. Now let's continue, Lady Patin again, and Shoya, our time became less now. Let me say one comment also, and then please continue on. As Islam means that equality, Islam means that reachability, everyone reach services more easily. Do you think fintech is a kind of bridge to make usability and reachability every people somehow Islamic instruments or some mission of them they can make easy with fintechs applications or digital issues? Do you think so? And what is the banks and fintechs and needs some startups? Do you think still startups should meet the gaps? Do you think so or not?
Certainly. Well, 2 days ago, I met with a co-founder of a startup in Oman called Marketix, which is an online shopping platform here in Oman. She said that during pandemic, that particular site received 300% subscription. In Oman, usually we like to buy things, by touching them, by ensuring the quality. We are very, visual buyers. But due to pandemic, actually, most of consumers shifted to online platforms. And of course, when you shift to online platforms for e-commerce purposes, you have to pay e-payment. So how do you do that if you don't have the right ecosystem? So this is quite interesting. You mentioned about Islamic and the fintech integration, because at the end of the day, a consumer is a consumer and he wants convenience. And as Mr. Qaisar mentioned in the beginning, that he doesn't see like a differentiation, And the thing is, in Arabic, we have as well hadith of Rasul. Al-asl fil uqud al-ibaha. There is a permissibility in contracts anyway that is available there. Or contracts, the origins of any contract is permissibility. I mean, it is permissible if it's otherwise proven not to be. So fintech is transaction-based. It makes payment easier. It's convenient for the consumer. It is less costly for the consumer. So any consumer would like to have that. If we are thinking about the Muslim consumer is interested in, making his zakat, for instance. So if we make it easier for him by having an application to do his zakat, at ACE, that's a wonderful thing. What about the Waqf initiative, specifically during pandemic? Somebody who would like to contribute to raise or to plant, a farm in a particular space. That's a wonderful project that can be uploaded in an app. What about, charitable giving, specifically during pandemic? Because to me, it seems that the shift to fintech nowadays in the GCC area is because of the pandemic. We shifted to these online platforms. So I believe that the consumer now is more aware, is more, smart as well. He demands that these platforms to be available. And I think we have no option except to comply. The growth rate in my, in my thinking process is bound to happen. So this is actually an opportunity for, tech, companies to come and view the market. But then we have also to ensure that the ecosystem, we have to know about the breakdown of the fintech ecosystem. Why consumers are using those applications? Is it only, for payments, or because they would like, to access finance, or for crowdfunding, or it's insurtech, or personal finance, or POS services? So these questions need to be answered. And I believe that the key lies with somebody who takes the initiative and, make a smart move to understand the markets, which are now, I believe the shift is coming. So you either become, somebody who takes the few, brave steps and advanced steps to take this initiative forward. Again, there is, the halal economy. I stayed in Malaysia for 4 years. I have noted that, mashallah, the Malaysians insist on the halal restaurant. They have to see the certification of halal before they enter to any restaurant. The same thing with any other Muslim in other, in whether it's in an OIC or non-OIC country. A platform that does that screening for the consumer makes it easier for the consumer to come at ACE, same way as the consumer in Malaysia would enter the restaurant. So I think the potential is there. This is a call actually for companies to come in and knock the door and see where they can, fit their products and services to suit the consumer. And as I said, al-asl fil uqud al-ibaha. There is permissibility in every contract unless it is proven otherwise.
If I may just, chip in to what Dr. Fatin has just, added. I think it's great how she's ended it with the legal maxim that the origin for transaction is permissibility, or the base rule for transaction is that of permissibility. That brings a perfect alignment between fintech and Islamic finance, and that's about your question, Mr. Kugu. Essentially, how can this fintech sort of reduce, or how with technology, Islamic finance can sort of reduce the inequality, can bridge the gap of inequality, which is cited two very good examples and use the COVID-19 pandemic to make it even clearer or more lucid for us. Say the use of zakat instruments or the use of waqf instrument. Now, these two instruments are instruments for social finance. They are specifically to empower the underprivileged segment of the society. These instruments are essentially balancing the equation, or if I could use the word, sharing prosperity in the society, where the one from whom it is taken or the one that is given enjoys certain spiritual upliftment and blessing and increase in their own wealth, really. And those that are receiving it are also getting welfare or getting financially buoyant or better than they were before. So, but before now, it's a difficult process, it's a tedious process. With the infusion of technology, it became easier. But we believe it can even become a lot more better because so far, the fintech startups that are in this space, those entities that are operating in this space are still growing. They're just started. We have a couple of examples. We have crowdfunding platforms that helps the less privileged, that helps with social campaigns, help fund social campaigns. We have Zakat direct debit platforms that does this as well. We also have platform that matches Waqf donation to Waqf project. And in the midst of all this, it's impact on the society. But there is still more to be done. So far, the technologies that have been used are still the easy or the low-hanging technology. A couple of investments still need to be made in technologies that combines the likes of artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms to verify, to identify where the assistance is needed the most, and to quantify the channel to trace transactions. Although this is already in place, a couple of startups are already doing that. Where they use blockchain mechanism to infuse traceability of funds, to sort of bring about transparency in the delivery of funds. Where if a zakat fund is taken from one person, it reaches the end user, and the use of that fund is being reported back to the donor or to the giver. That brings about transparency, brings about confidence, and also incentivizes, or would I say, encourages, if we can use the word motivate as well, the giver to give more because he can see the impact of what has been given. So again, to break it down, we have technology on one side, we have the Islamic finance principle on the other side, and then we have the need there. Now, imagine these two together sort of bridge the inequality gap, which is a big problem in the world that we live in today. It's predominantly common in the West, but unfortunately, yes, it's also present in the Muslim world majority. But regardless of whether it's the Muslim world or the Muslim majority country, or it's the non-Muslim majority country, the problem is inequality is a problem. Is there a tool to solve it? We have a tool, we have the system, we have the principle. What we just need is to enhance the technology and roll out and it will thrive on its own, I believe. So this is just a bit of my contribution in that regard.
Welcome, Mustafa, about your ethics and comments. And then let's continue with Mr. Kaiser. Mr. Kaiser, as our last minutes of first panel, and maybe as a closer speech, can you coverage and can you comment as result comments to us about Islamic finance and in general? You know, in the world, because of your mission was different point of the world. What do you think in New Year? What will be go on about finance and Islamic finance in general?
Oh, thanks a lot. I think a lot has been said in the last 35, 40 minutes. On your question on financial technology, there is no argument, and I've written about it several times, so I'm not going to repeat it. I've spoken about it several times, that we have today in our hands a tool which can enhance our ability, and let's just stick to the financial sector, of reaching out to many more financially excluded people. That's a given. I mean, there is no issue on that at all. Technology is a tool which will help deepen towards banking and financial sectors, and it is happening. Is it happening in the Islamic banking and finance sector? It isn't to the extent that it should be. 60 years approximate from the time that the first Islamic bank was set up in Egypt, in Cairo, today we are still 3% of the banking and financial assets of the world. So there's a reason for that. Despite all this optimism, which is very good, we should have this optimism. And I think the reason for that is that, you talked about permissibility. So who is this who's going to give this permission that this is permissible or not permissible? Is it the guys who said this lottery in Dubai is permissible? And then it was non-permissible, and then they had to change it. So who gives that? So these are questions we need to ask ourselves. These 150 Islamic Sharia-compliant fintechs that are existing in the world today, how are they set up? With Islamic venture capital money? No, with conventional. 80% of the funding of setting up Islamic fintechs is coming from conventional. Did anyone check where did they get their money from, which they're financing our Sharia compliant fintech? So look, these are the issues that we need to. The fact that because we have a Sharia compliant or a fintech, which is working with an Islamic bank, which can increase its outreach, is a fact. It can. We can reach out because of the tools that we have. Risk was mentioned. We can assess the risk better. So we can reach deeper into the market to individuals who we did not reach out to before because we had no clue whether they were risky or not risky. We can do that. But are we doing it in an Islamic manner? We talked about the instruments, debt. So that's all. The point is that when we speak about financial sector deepening or banking sector deepening, it's all a function of the number of financial and banking products that you have. If you just have debt or you just have equity, like we have, you just have mudarba or muraba, you're not going to go very deep. And the reason is simple for that. It's not that people don't want it. And some banks are actually pushing it because that's the only product they have. The fact is that a business requires different types of financing at different stages of its evolution. It needs debt at some point, it needs equity at some point, it needs to float an IPO at some point. So all these instruments together form the banking and financial sector. Do we have that in Islamic today? We don't. 60 years on, why don't we have it? We talked about this debate, ongoing debates. Ongoing, it can be endless, right? We need to put, I think this is where we need to start thinking about. Again, just recently someone mentioned, I think on my LinkedIn, that we need to write a manifesto, like Karl Marx wrote a manifesto of this is what we need to do. We know what we need to do. I don't think anyone has to, it's in the Quran, right? We don't even have to invent it. We know what is Sharia compliant funding, financing, what is Sharia compliant banking. We have excuses that because we're stuck in this conventional banking, it is very difficult. We will reach there. I think Brother Mustafa also said over a period of time. So what is that period of time? Let's define it. Is it 300 years, 400 years, a century, 10 centuries? I don't know. We need to define that period. Otherwise, all else is cosmetics, ethical finance, or Sharia compliant Islamic. I mean, those are just words. At the end of the day, you spoke about substance and form. So it has to be the substance, right? That's what it is all about. So Sharia compliant means it's compliant with the laws of Islam. Sharia is the law of Islam. So these are the issues I have because the subject is Islamic finance. I mean, fintechs, we're leaving on the side. Fintechs are fintechs. They will enable conventional funding to reach out to the excluded. It will enable Islamic financing to reach out to. There's no question about that. And COVID definitely has accelerated it. Yeah, I use this app about Sharia. I use an app now when I want to do Qurban on Eid. Excellent, very good. Is that banking and finance? It isn't. So the guy who bought that goat or that sheep that I, use my app to fund, I don't know where he got it from. He probably borrowed from a conventional bank and raised it in some, place wherever. I don't know where it came from because it's not an Islamic society that it was in, right? It's a society which has 98% conventional banking and 2% Islamic. So in that you raised a goat, which I very diligently bought for my Qurbani on my app. But how was that goat purchased? We don't know. So AI and all. So these are the issues I wanted to bring to the table. I mean, excuse me for my, but I've been involved not many years. I mean, you guys have been involved much more, 10 years. And Brother Mustafa, I worked with GAB actually. So that's something we set up in Kenya, Gulf African Bank and Cooperative Bank, all wanting to do Islamic. Bank of Senegal Islamic Bank, right? That's what it's called. Look deeper. I mean, are they doing Islamic funding or banking? You tell me. I'll just end it here, frankly speaking. I mean, we can argue about this, but there's no need to argue about it. We know what needs to be done. We should go ahead and do that. If we can't do it, let's say we can't do it. And just one last word on the Islamic, the FinTech. So when we were working with Bank Muscat for the Islamic, so this was already 2015, 16. So technology had come in. Supply chain finance was a big thing. But how do you do supply chain finance for an Islamic bank? I know we have Brother Khatib from PATH, he probably would explain it, but I needed a system where, when you supply something, so the bank actually buys it. So it's in its possession. I know it's all done through contracts now and it's on paper. I know a few banks will actually buy it and they have warehouses and they store it. But that process has to come into the technology process also. That it has been bought, the bank owns it, and then the bank sells it. So all that has to be digitized in that digital financial technology platform. It wasn't being done at that time. And if it was, it would become much more expensive. And Fatin, you spoke about intermediation costs being lowered. Well, they're lower even for conventional. So if conventional was lower before, then Islamic, and then they're lower again, and the difference is still there.
Kaiser Bey, Mr. Kaiser, thank you, shukran, merci for your good coverage and explanation, and with your spiritual explanation as well is more important for this kind of meetings. Let's last 1 minute conclusion messages from Mr. Mustafa, and then later as last speaker, Lady Fatin. Firstly, Mr. Mustafa, can you last concluded message for this panel? And for me, I am really appreciated and glad to see you in this FinTech panel, and very, very glad to your sharings to with us.
Okay, I think first of all, I wish I had been able to join earlier. I think I've missed a significant part of the sharing from the two wise and erudite panelists. I hope we can catch up again. But really, on Islamic finance, I think Islamic finance has a room in a bigger role to play, inshallah, in financial system, in the global financial system. As Mr. Kaiser has rightly put forward, yes, it's about time we face the reality. Really, what do we want to do, Islamic finance or otherwise? It's about time we really tell ourselves, for how long do we want to keep nurturing this baby, imitating the conventional system? Though I still think, yes, it needs to be incubated better. But now with technology, the reasons that we had in the past for incubating, the reasons do not exist anymore. We can actually define the true Islamic finance and go on with it. Yes, there's a lot of mixed feelings or mixed deals between, okay, is it the front only that is Sharia compliant, or across the entire chain we have a Sharia compliant process in place? There is still that. We have, with technology these days, we can actually trace at every point, say the person that buys the goods and where he sells it and all this stuff, we can actually have ways to go. Technology can enable that. That's the bottom line. And yes, with COVID-19, that has accelerated the digital activities across board, from the consumer, from the supply side, and even from the regulatory side. So it has enabled us to do Islamic finance better. And I think that is where regulators should look at. That is where the supply of Islamic financial service should look at, and also the customer. Really, the ideal Islamic finance does not lie only on the supply side, as most people will think. It's also on the demand side. So there's a bit of effort that is needed from the consumer side, who will demand ideal or real Islamic financial services, not those that will demand something that looks like the conventional. Otherwise, The suppliers are businessmen, though. I mean, they want to make profit, and they have people's fund in their hands, so they may be tempted. In fact, they are often channeling the fund in the best or the most profitable ways. So that's it for me. Thank you so much. Wonderful being on the panel with you great people. I wish to have a time again to share similar. Thank you.
Most welcome, Mustafa Bey, Mr. Mustafa. And then, as lastly, Lady Fatin, as your most conclude messages, please.
Thank you so much. As I said before, I'm so honored to be on board. And Mr. Nassim, you have a lot of experience, coming to the region and going to Africa. I know that you probably saw a lot, and you probably saw more than any of us. Myself, I'm a fresh graduate of PhD in Islamic Finance from INSIF. I believe that we are living in different age. And I believe that, with the smart contracts available, we can actually factor that for, the transactions that are coming ahead with the Islamic finance. Of course, for instance, we can have those smart contracts activated to have real economic activity in our economy. In addition to that, you did mention about intermediation. I agree with you. Actually, I have mentioned it as a plus point for fintech. But then with Islamic finance, we have a very interesting product range. Islamic finance instruments. We have Waqf, conventional doesn't. We have Musharaka, conventional doesn't. We have Zakat, conventional doesn't. I mean, all of this, I know that probably you come with experience and you will tell me, that happened and so forth. But the future is, the future is value-based intermediation. The future is, the value that you drive for the corporation or, the economy that you are in. Banks now all over the world, not because they are Islamic, have to do sustainability reporting and disclosures. And that to me is, as my supervisor, my co-supervisor says, the transition from the halal to the tayyib. So, in sustainability, there is an aspect of Sharia. In fact, I have, reviewed more than 1,000 indicators, GRI indicators, and I did not see any of them that is, contradicting to the Sharia. So I feel that change is coming. Value-based economies are, making progress. This is something that we can see in my economy, in fact. Today, in one of the committees that I have, a member in the college, we were thinking about, having solar panels for one of the buildings. So change is coming. Things are happening. Disclosures are more. We have to be transparent. We have to ensure that the young generation are empowered and able and capable, and wish for the best. I mean, even though you given me the oblique future, you are enthusiastic that I am enthusiastic. At the end of the day.
Not a bleak future, by the way, if you read my messages on LinkedIn. So the future is what we make it to be, by the way.
Yes.
And I think it is this spirit and the young people, and I've said that many times, unfortunately, the responsibility of making the future better is on your shoulders, because we are leaving you with a very, very bad world. Unfortunately, we are. And I say that very openly, and I address a lot of students and graduates. And I got this question actually from a young person like you, that why is it on our shoulders? I said, because we've left it on your shoulders. So it is, I mean, you should never lose hope. And that's the ending message of if you look at my LinkedIn of last year, that it is hope which will take us into a better future. And hopefully 2021 is going to be that future. Inshallah, with people like you, inshallah, we will get
certainly.
Most welcome to Lady Fatin, Nassim Bey, Kaysar Bey, Mustafa, Akil Nasso Bey, and many salam wherever you are from our sides, and shukran for your all sharings and your experience and thoughts and your things about thoughts about this finance, Islamic finance and finance general. Now we are passing to our second panel, and then for second panel we have speakers as Ahmed Salah Al-Barishi, Mr. Ahmed Salah Al-Barishi, and Mohammed Khatib, Mr. Mohammed Khatib, and then we now as second panel we want to talk about a little more fintech, and fintech, as you know now, is a heavy word and common word and on board because finance is important sector, industry, affecting everything as it has a kind of infrastructure of the social life together with technology. So as my one of question, as maybe our deep speakers can mention about if Islamic finance and fintech, how help fintech Islamic finance and finance as well, that how people democratization, how finance instruments will be reachable for unbanked people, or this kind of issues. We want to be on board now. We want to talk and we want to start with Mohammed Khatib Bey, and then with just short intro about themselves for our panelist speakers, and then let's enter the subject fintech revolution and new year. Khatib Bey.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. I'd like to thank Faster Community. Actually, I was listening to the session before, and I am very impressed with the quality of the discussion. It's a subject that form versus substance has been discussed for years. So I want to thank Faster Community for continuing to contribute to the knowledge base of this community. My name is Mohammed Khatib. I'm the group chairman and the CEO of Path Solutions. Path Solution is a company we pride ourselves on being the #1 partner for Islamic finance when it comes to technology and software. We build core banking and peripheral systems, and we cover the Islamic segment from Malaysia all the way to South America. On the fintech front, we are involved in building two very important fintechs. One has to do with retail consumer Islamic finance, and the second one is with international trade finance. And we're very excited about this segment, and we believe that, yes, it will be playing a very key role in Islamic finance and in the actually empowering more of financial inclusion in the Islamic world.
Most welcome for introduction, Khatib Bey. Let's continue with Ahmed Al-Balushi Bey. Mr. Al-Balushi, can you mention about yourself and where is the fintech in your world and in area? And as far as I know, you are also always mention about Industry 4.0, and then of course one of the main topics of Industry 4.0 is AI. As far as I know, you are one of the co-founder of Bahrain AI community. We want to know about you and your opinions about fintech issues. Your microphone closed, maybe, please.
Audible now?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Sorry for that. First of all, I would like to thank Foster Community for this opportunity. Although I have some good relation with Mustafa Bey, we had from the starting of such fintech activities that we have done, and CEO Fintech Club, and this one, and Islamic Fintech. A good move that Mustafa Bey is leading in such activities, which will expose and it will bring the fintech some ideas and some knowledge about how fintech field has been changed. My name is Ahmed Saleh Al-Balushi. I'm currently the founder and managing director of Fintech IT Services and Consultations. Mainly, we are focusing on consultation on Industry 4.0, the fourth industrial revolution. I have more than 35 years experience in IT field. Actually, most of my experience was within companies like Gulf Air, EDS company, the IT services, Sabre, and then I ended up with Bahrain Islamic Bank Recently, 4 or 5 years back, I decided to resign and take my early retirement and open this firm because I have seen the world is changing towards something else totally, which is the Industry 4.0 revolutions. And I thought that it is something that I like and I love to do. So I put my hand into it, and uh, to make it much more better, I participated in so many events trying to explore and trying to send the message to others what is Industry 4.0 and what is the main objective of it. It's not anymore about technology, my friend, now. Now things are moving towards mindsets, moving towards tools, moving towards building like an end-to-end partnership. It's not about just come bring your technology, implement it, and leave. And therefore, we are working from that perspective, from that base, that I'm engaging with so many organizations and companies through the world who has AI lab and AI and machine learning and deep learning labs. They're working based on big data analytics, which is the trend now. During the events, this event, we will be talking more about it, inshallah. But this is mainly the thing. I'm board member also of a Toastmaster Club, board member of Artificial Intelligence Society, and has been honored 3 times for CIO 200 awards for the last 3 years. Back to you, Mustafa.
Most welcome, Ahmed Bey. Let me also, from my point of view, what I see about the fintech revolution, and let's, in some time we say, let's enter the book from the middle, yani, and then see where is the revolution, where is the front end, back end, and all kind of issues, and try to collect as a result as well during the panel. As AI, as you mentioned that in your area, firstly, as Industry 4.0, one of the measure is AI contributor to the Industry 4.0. As digital transformation is all over the world now because of pandemic and other reasons as well. There is a digital economy, and countries maybe don't aware of this. Yani, because of politics, some reasons, the kind of history now is recurring. Yani, we are living again one history again. Please remember, United Kingdom was exploring to the oceans. Now United Kingdom exploring to the digital ocean. And many years before, we were dealing with inside of some politics or this kind of issues. Now, as if same, we cannot go on digital oceans. As maybe if you remember, yesterday I shared about United Kingdom, how they are caring something about AI by using data. This, as you know, now this data is according to some restrictions or data privacy issues. Data belongs to whom? Data belongs in Turkey now, مثلا. In Turkey, data belongs to the banks. Banks cannot share data, or even they cannot use very well the data. And I mean very well. And maybe I need some microcredits, and I can pay easily for this by using data can be easily seen. But as Ahmed, you were in banks before, as banks are very heavy to make some agile responses, things, machine learning, data risk credit, microfinance, credit risk reports, or this kind of issues, very heavy. As what I mean in last sharing in the United Kingdom, they are one of some very basic thing, but look like very revolutionary thing. Even many countries cannot, central banks cannot aware of this, or cannot make step what I mean about sandboxes. Yeah, and sandboxes of the data opening the sandboxes to the let's say fintech startups, the ecosystem, and creative minds work on it, and they innovate, and then innovation potential increasing, and something. So this is when United Kingdom bank data is belongs to the not financial institutions. Data belongs to the users, customers, end user can share this data whatever they want, and they can collect some services from them as a bridge between financial sources and end users with the expectation level of digital standards. So as I said, I wanted to enter in the middle of the book that something revolution or be revolution in this year is very basic data. Yani if we can use the data as economy, as innovation, as share, as democratic way of sharing, we all economies and networks and many unbanked people or many people needs very fastly some credits, microcredits will reach even financial inclusions and services very fastly and easily. So this is one of my point of view. I want to add. Mohammed Khatib Bey, what do you think about the to New Year? What is your expectation from New Year as far fintech? Because last years we, as if maybe fintech was on board. Yani, every region has some fintech products, fintech startups, and seems that they are coming. So as New Year, we will see more and more something as new and more developed services. What do you think, even from banks?
Yes, I always like to put frameworks when I'm talking about, because fintechs or any other subject, when you look at what's happening in the world, it really a lot of crazy things happening, and everybody have a different initiatives. But I think one of the most important points that I like to make is our ability to be aware of what's really happening in the world. And when you look at the fintechs, for us to really play a key role in fintechs, we have to be very aware what is happening. It's not really just simple technology and people utilizing technology and data and this. Yes, I believe data is, and we will talk more about this, data is probably today the most strategic asset that any organization can have. But what I'd like to think is this fintech revolution, as we're talking about the fintech revolution, where did it come from? It really part of a worldwide technology revolution, and which has other dimensions, social, political. In the last 15 years, the whole world is changing, and there is not one single sector that is not changing. It's not only fintechs changing the financial industry. Look at every single industry, and you will see a revolution in it. I was listening to a very quick session about the virus development, and people were questioning how fast that virus was developed. And it's amazing because the number one contributor why they were able to develop this virus so fast, much longer than viruses before, which took years, is technology. And fintech is part of this revolution. It's the technology revolution that's changing the world. If we are aware of what's happening, if we are aware of how we took a traditional industry like finance, which basically technology was used and in a very boring way, and it was moving very slowly. And then some smart people came in, used this technology, used the cloud as an infrastructure, used the mobility and how mobile was all over the world. And they actually offered services, sub-services that are making the user very powerful and with ease of use. And they found that this service is an amazing service. This compared to what they have with the traditional banks. This is just really an amazing revolution that is changing everything. So this started years ago and it's developing. It came into the Islamic finance, and we have Islamic fintechs, and they are not as advanced as conventional banking, but they are moving. Then we got hit with the 2021 and 2020, and we got a lot of lessons to learn. And actually the word trust that was talked about in the first session became fashionable again. And all of a sudden the people are looking for a party they trust. So the fintechs had some really setbacks because people were going back and running back to the banks. And only large fintechs, only fintechs that are very well established can actually survive what happened in the 2020 and moving forward. The world is changing very, very fast. And what we need to do is we need to be very aware of the different stages and put ourselves in the right stage so we can actually compete. It's almost a reset button. You just said it yourself. When colonization was going with the British, they were using the oceans and the ships. Today, colonization is using digital and data. It is how, because of that reset button, we have an opportunity for most of the countries in our region, Islamic countries, and in Asia, Africa, etc., to actually play part of this amazing revolution. And if we can play part in this amazing revolution, we actually could be in the next phase a key player where we, in the last 100 years, we haven't really been, or more than 100 years, we haven't really been a key player. So I look at fintech or more of the grand scheme. I look at fintech as part of a revolution that the whole world is changing. And if you're aware of the value of what is happening in this fintech sector, we can actually secure a place in this new world. And of course, that comes through ecosystem, how you actually develop your local ecosystems, how you develop your regional ecosystem, and how you integrate with the worldwide ecosystem. How do you use your data strategically, not only collecting data? The bank collected data for hundreds of years, or at least 100 years. But actually, if you look at how they were using it, they were not using it strategically. The fintech came in and said, you know what, if I understand this data, apply some AI to it, I can really offer very, very interesting products and very smart products. And then the consumer reacted and said, oh, I love it. I want this service. So awareness is the most important thing. It's not really just a bunch of technology and people are using it. It is what the phase where we're in and how to use it and to offer much smarter and much better products. That's my take on the fintech as a revolution overall.
Muhammad Khatib Bey, shukran for your sharings. Even Ahmed Bey mentioned about this is not only technology for zero industry, this is a mindset issue. Let's continue with Ahmed Bey. What do you mean about mindset, and what is you think that fintech revolution in your area and your expectation from fintechs as revolutionary? But I say something expectation maybe, yani maybe there's already come in the time, but we are still expecting, but still is suffering because of regulation is not fitting or some another issues, restrictions. But millennium people, as you know, is very digitalized people that waiting digital solutions, easy solutions without progress from us. Just I want to give you this about these issues. If you say your thoughts, we will be very happy.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Before I go into that mindset and saying how things, technology by itself, they change the mindset, it has to change the mindset of the leaders. Let's first look into how banking started. When they digitalized the banking, I want to call it digital, automated some processes. The banking used to be, I mean, there was only a core banking, and the people, they have to go to the branch, withdraw, deposit money, and do their transactions. That we call it, let me call it banking 1.0. Then a new digital or technology came into, which are the ATMs, telebanking, net banking, by phone you can do it. That changed the concept of banking and relieved some burden on the banks and made them automate some processes. This is, let's call this one a bank or financing or digital 2.0. Then it moves to the third era, which is the current one, the mobile banking, the online banking, the social media, something called SMAC, social media, automated, cloud. which some banks are doing this now, which is trying to utilize the social media, and some of them trying to move to the cloud, which we call this is the digital banking 3.0. But they are stuck there. They cannot move forward. And there's a reason of that, because the next generation was there a few years back, 4 or 5 years back. IoT, artificial intelligence, RPA, open banking, blockchain, cybersecurity, cloud computing, they are there. But still, the banks did not step into this new technology. Why is that? There are reasons for that. There are challenges for that. There are fears from the people to move to that area, maybe lack of knowledge, lack of experience, and you cannot blame them for that. Moving to such area need expertise, need people who really invested time and efforts into it. I spent it mostly after I went to retirement, or I took my resignation from the bank, 4 to 5 years. It took me, I was writing in LinkedIn, I was searching, I was doing lots of researches and articles just to understand how this industry 4.0 works, how it can help the financial and even the other sector, the industrial, the ministries. And I found that most of the things are the fears to move there because they do not have time to spend it in such technologies. Decision making is one of the challenges that you are facing in lots of the organization, specifically in banks. Weak strategies, they do not have a proper strategy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years that we will move from this stage to this stage. Change culture, this is the mindset now. The mindset needs to be changed. The people, you see, it's if you think, what you give me, implement a core business system, implement ERP system, do some accounts on the social media, write blogs, publish a video, create a website. This is all techniques. Nobody used that. What is better answer for that? Build relationships, connect with communities. This is for leaders, Leaders. Collaborate locally and globally. Change the work culture. Make them go and learn also what's there outside. Bring it into my bank, bring it into my organization. Learn from anyone and from everyone. Develop opportunities for your staff. Technology as a mindset, not as a process. Plan the change and then lead. Leadership transforms challenges into opportunities. Technology is not just a tool, it is a leadership. Now, let me give you an example of a challenge that everybody's facing. I wrote about this 2 years ago in LinkedIn. The big techs, you know how much they worth in the market? Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Google, Facebook, 4 trillion. 30% of USA GDP and China GDP. Almost as twice of some European big countries GDP, 4 trillion, imagine. Apple was in the market more than 1.2 trillion. Why? These are all, others, Google and other applications. But where they invested in data. Now, these people are coming to the financial sector now. It's coming. I said it 2 years back, and now it's obvious. Apple Pay, Google Pay, Alipay, Facebook Labor is coming. Now, these people, WhatsApp Pay in India, these people, they are eating the market, and they have the capabilities to do that. They have the money because their main investment is in technology. So that's why it's easy for them to do it. Now, how you can fight such big giants? You cannot do it alone. The banks, this is a big challenge for the bank. They cannot do it alone. Then you have to think for bank, something called, I give it a name, OpenX. Where X, open-minded, X for experience, become an inventive banks. Do not think that I have to just bring this tool, I need an application to automate for me the credit scoring, or I need to open the account for in 2 or 3 minutes. This is not true. This is not true. Now, if you think, what are the process in the banks? There is front office, there is the middle, and there is the back office. Yeah? Take off the front office because you need it by all means. Now, the middle and the back office, you need to collaborate and work on design with the fintechers. I said 2 years back, If the banks or the financial organ, they did not move now, they will be forced in a few years to work with the fintechs. They will be forced to split the cake with the fintechers. And the time it came now. Now they cannot do anything. Now, still there is time. Still there is time that they can fight against these big giants that are coming. They need to collaborate with the fintechs, with the fintech companies. Why? To modernize the middle operation and the back end operation, and then formalize it and then put it into the front office. They need to focus on people, on finance, on business, and technology. What they need to do, simply, they need to move from open innovation or proof of concept to applied innovation. They need to really think about that. Open innovation, okay, I want to do open innovation, but where is it? How I can do it? Think, just go, work with the fintechers and apply the innovation. Work as effective collaboration. I mean, nobody can do it now, specifically the banks and the financial organizations, without the fintechs. The fintechs now, they are a reality for them. And they have to split the cake. If they don't do it now, within a few years, even this cake will go even to maybe 10 or 20% because it will go to the big giants. All right, so thank you very much, and back to you.
Most welcome, Ahmed Bey. Of course, most welcome. Shukran for your sharings. And then as fintech, of course, cover many financial technologies. Even nowadays, sometimes people hearing tech fins. And as you know, tech giants also entered the market with their interlance and ecosystem, and they are servicing finance services to the issue. And banks and governments, regulations, payments system, customer demands, or kida. What do you think in the following days and following weeks and months in this year, especially? These regulations or economy, digital economy about fintech and regtech, of course, and regulations will be more and more easy for everyone to see, to reach to do some digital levels or innovation levels, or economy will be open because of startups economy and other economy as well. And banks, do you think sometimes banks is a kind of preventer or stopper about this economy will go, or government or regulation stopping the economy? What do you think about these issues, and what you are expecting in your region and in your point of view, this fintech economy and developments will go on how in these following days? Mr. Khatib, I want to ask.
Interesting question. As Brother Ahmed talked about the history of banking, I'm going to give just a very brief history of fintechs, because really in the last 10 years, although it's very small period of time, fintech also went through very, very interesting cycles. Fintechs, when they started, they went to the banks and looked at the most lucrative service, like a payment service, which has very high margin, and where the banks are not using the data strategically and whatever. They developed this service, packaged it, put it on the cloud, offered it to the customers. But then what? You have a payment fintech, and they're doing well, but where is their growth? What they should be doing? Then you end up with looking at another service in the bank and see, okay, can we go and offer this service? And so they start chipping off the bank's service by service. The problem is we found that the banks did react to that. They came and said, you know what, we're not going to let the fintechs take all the lunch. There was two reactions. One, from the banks, they start focusing on digital. Culture in banks is a huge issue, and Brother Ahmed talked about that, and this is really important. That's what slowed them down. So a lot of banks start recreating themselves from inside, changing the culture so they can offer some amazing digital services that compete with fintechs. The other reaction came from the regulators, to answer your question. The regulators found that this is very lucrative for the economy. This is an amazing thing that can actually help our economies. A lot of central banks, especially in the region, you look at the Central Bank of Bahrain, Central Bank of UAE, Central Bank of Saudi Arabia, they start looking at this as an opportunity to increase the pie, the size of the pie. So what they did is they said, we want to make it simpler for those fintechs to actually play a part. So they copied what was happening around the world, which is the open API. And what the open API really does, it forces the bank to open their data to the fintech so the fintechs can have a fair competition. So they started actually putting regulations. I think it's just less than a month ago, Saudi Arabia just announced that they have a full open API framework for fintechs to actually use. We know that some of those central banks in the region also have sandbox. You talked, Brother Mustafa, about sandboxes. Sandbox, yes, they are opening the sandbox, making it very easy to plug in your fintech to that sandbox. And if you do, then you can actually meet all the regulations and you can talk open API to the banks and all that. So the regulators are pushing. Are they really pushing in the right way or the wrong way? I'm going to preserve my judgment on that, but I do believe that they're taking the subject very seriously. So the banks are taking it very seriously, and you see a lot of initiative. If you go to the banks around the region and you ask, what's the number one priority on your list of priorities, almost all of them will say digital would be either one or number two. If it's number two, guess what's number one? It's basically security, because to go with digital and offer digital outside, you have to secure your network. So security and digital are the two most important initiatives, and they are correlated and they are related to each other. Then the central banks priority, if you look at all the central banks priorities, they're all trying to educate themselves about these new technologies and this fintechs and how can they actually help this fintech ecosystem to play in their countries. You even saw some central banks go more aggressive and looking at digital currencies, no movement on the crypto currencies, but at least digital currencies, which is a reflection of a fiat currency. They're actually offering digital currency. Why you offer digital currency? Because you want the digital services such as payment to actually be done through those digital currencies, and you don't have to actually go and deal with the traditional currency. So there's a lot of activities happening, and they all kind of happening in the same time, supporting each other, which is working for the fintechs. The problem that I see is, if you look at the fintechs in the past, they were flying solo, and they thought that they can. I actually was in some sessions in 2015, 16, and even 17, where some people, naive enough, they said, oh, the fintechs will replace the banks. And I start smiling, and I knew that's not going to happen. And finally, the fintechs got this mindset that we need to cooperate with the banks. We need to partner with the banks. So they became, instead of a competitor, they became an enabler to services. And you see the banks looking at the fintechs all of a sudden, instead of looking at them as competitors, they start actually looking at them as partners. So you see this happening all around the world, and definitely in the region, where a lot of banks are supporting some kind of hackathons, and they're doing competition with the fintechs and start to select the best fintechs to partner with. I think the amazing part is more than 50% of the funding that's going into the fintechs is actually coming from the banks, which is very surprising. And this is, by the way, a phenomenon around the world. It's not private equities and it's not venture capitalists. It's actually the banks going in and putting a huge amount of investment into blockchain fintechs, into AI fintechs and all that. Because if you invest into these fintechs, then you have access to their innovation and to their ability. You can actually bring that technology in-house. And some of the large banks around the world, like Bank of America, like Citibank, they're actually investing heavily in fintechs that are playing in that space. So I think the ecosystems are forming, the partnerships are forming, and the picture is kind of getting complete to allow us to go to the next phase, which is a phase based on, again, local ecosystems regional ecosystems, international ecosystems, they all collaborating and partnering to offer you the best service that immersed inside your life. And I can see you have basically in 5 years, not knowing what banks and what financial institutions are actually doing your transaction, you're just happening. You go and buy something and do something, and the financial transaction is happening. And it could be 3-4 partners actually partnered to complete that transaction. Similar to what's happening today with the SWIFT and the Visa and all that, but you will not even see that. It will be like hidden and emerge. So the AI and the new technology will allow you to have very complicated systems, but with very simple interface. So the user will see very simple thing, interface with these services, but behind these services, very complex ecosystem that talks to each other and work and make your life much easier. Very exciting world we're coming into. And just one final statement about the big technologies. I warned, and you know, Brother Mustafa, you were with me on some of the chat groups and stuff. I warned a while ago about the big technologies, and I do believe what's happening with WhatsApp in the last 2 weeks, where they changed the regulations and their access to data, and they're offering the data to Facebook, is a fear that I believe we're allowing these big techs. I know they have the money, I know they have the reach, but I do believe they are a high risk and a very high risk to the region. And I believe now, I sent today, I think you read it, that India just read, they were one of the first partners, India, to WhatsApp and WhatsApp payments. Now they're raising the red flag and saying, no, we reject the new policy, confidentiality policy, and we want you to change that. Because that's exactly what's going to happen in this world. If you allow these large big techs to come into your markets, it's going to be almost impossible for the fintechs and the banks to compete. And then they put their own policies, and then you will end up with the top 4 or 5 big techs, as Brother Ahmed say, owning half the world. And this is, by the way, not far off at all.
True, very true.
John, for this comprehensive explanation, especially bank point of view. We know you are as professional area, you are deal with banks, bank technology infrastructures, as well as software level as well. You are very deeply inside. So thank you for this explanation. As much as possible, I am asking without freedomly, yani, as what they are doing, regtech banks or governments, or which one is preventing something, or such issues. I am how can I say, no sideless. I am sideless as a speaker or questioner. So let's continue with Ahmed Bey. It is nice to hear that in the region there is sandbox issues, and then this kind of very basic issues, but very important issues, will be everywhere because of the professional people cannot expect, shouldn't expect, haven't to be expect that startups should aware of every regulation, every data manipulation, every API, every services, how they service. They shouldn't expect. They should give as a kind of real data from their hands to the fintechs and startups, as the startups will boost their economy. And this is so. It is. I am a little angry in this issue that how these professional people cannot easily understand this and cannot make sandbox for startups ecosystem. But Alhamdulillah, it is good to hear that banks, at least from their perspective or their services, add-on services, supporting incubation centers, via incubation centers, support startups as well. So Ahmed Bey, what about your market, about this issue? Do you think that new revolution coming with startups, open APIs, or sandboxes? What do you think?
Well, if I have to talk about what is there, the market, we need the whole day. But I'm trying to focus, on the main thing. I'm trying to just merge FinTech with the Industry 4.0 to come up with the best approaches or the best advices or recommendations that are available in the market. Number one, we have to understand it is not easy for the firms. Now when I say FinTech or financial technologies or any technologies, it's not about banks only. It's about anywhere, any airline, ministries, industries, everywhere. When I said you change the mindset, then the leaders, they need to think, okay, how can I do that? I need budget for that. So how do I change my mindset and start working on technologies? There is where Industry 4.0 helps you. Now, number one, I would like to thank Brother Muhammad. Actually, he listed few points. I want to talk about them, so he talked about them. Thank you very much. I will not talk about them, but only the regulator. I believe that, as Brother Muhammad said, regulators are trying their best to work with the banks and with the organization to come up with good solution that will help the startups and the banks to move on to the latest technology. One of the hubs that the CBP, for example, they're getting something called FinHub, which contains APIs for open banking. I did not explore much, but I believe that it's a place that so many fintech startups, they need to invest in it. Also, Brother Muhammad, he mentioned about security. When I said before, Industry 4.0 is about 2 or 3 elements, the rest they're working around them. Number one is the data. Number 2 is the speed, the internet. And number 3 is the cybersecurity. And when I say cybersecurity, it is not security, it is the cybersecurity. If you talk about viruses and the current environment, it can go there, rely there for 500 days. From 1 day to 500 days. Nobody knows about it. But with cybersecurity, merged with AI and machine learning, you can get it in seconds. It can catch it, it can tell you that there is a problem because it has a huge access to massive data worldwide. Now, what we have in the Industry 4.0, we have, for example, AI, machine learning, deep learning, big data analytics, Internet of Things, blockchain, cloud computing, cybersecurity. How you can you use them all? Do you need them all? This is number one. Do you really need them all? No. So the question comes here, how can I move to these technologies if I don't have a budget? The leader will ask. Then you have, for me, because I used to be a DBA, so I know that, so I was working on data and on servers. So I know where are the savings. Most of your cost and money goes to the infrastructure. The cloud is there. Regulators, they say that we have problem with security, putting customers' data, for example, for banks on the cloud. You have the hybrid cloud. Put everything on the cloud, put your data on the premises. There's a solution. You know how much you can save? I guarantee you 60 to 70% of your infra cost. You just need somebody to move to that state. Do you think the current environment or the current leaders, they can do? If you cannot do it, then you have the consultants. Go to the consultants, sit with them, see what are your options, how you can go out from this, reduce your cost, and use this saving to enhance your environment and bring in AI, machine learning, deep learning. Let me give you an example. For me, I just signed lately a contract with one of the big companies in UK, in US and India for AI and machine learning lab. Why? I can see this is the future. I know that this is the future. This is where the business relies, the data, and how the data will be utilized by these, the labs. You need to invent, you need to put labs there for these people, the data scientists, to come in and start manipulating the data for you and come up with visions. Imagine how much you can get benefit out of something called Internet of Things. Devices in your bank, machines, ATMs, even cars, even your tellers, even your core banking. Imagine how much, if you connected all these together using machine learning and deep learning, how much cost saving you can make, how much you can automate, how much process you can be automated, and then the rest of the stuff they can refocus on something else, come up with better. Blockchain. Imagine blockchain, this is the future of the payment technology, by the way, blockchain. It needs to be regulated. It will be regulated. When we are talking, I believe Brother Muhammad here agree with me on this. The digital coin and currency is coming for you. It's coming. Now it's payless. Short while it will be like, they will tell you, we will go for digital currency, there is no cash. So do you think, which is the best technology for you to move to? Is it the normal, this one? No, you need blockchain. So then, also even the blockchain, you can watch it. They said, no, it's encrypted and we cannot monitor it. No, you can monitor it. Who said that? You can move your blockchain to a private environment and regulate it within your country and watch it. Watch it from end to end, how it's working, where it's going from where, reaching where. You can do that. Now, I said that, think how we can move now. If you want to move, it's not like I will just take a ball and I put 20 people on the field and they just run and everybody shoot the ball. No, it's not like that. You need to put a plan. What is the plan? Basically the plan, you need to put a strategy. This strategy should start from the top to down. It comes from the leader, from the board members, from the CEO. A policy needs to be set how my strategy should be. Challenges versus opportunities. Business should meet technology. Then you have to execute that proof of concept, evaluate and review. Then you go to the execution. This is how the Industry 4.0 works. Strategy, opportunity, go then to pilot, learn from that, then adapt, then move to the next stage. It's about identifying the gaps, create your roadmap, then start optimizing it, implement it and optimize it. This is how it works. And how you do that? You have to go for strategy. That strategy may include lots of things. Think about your technology. I want to standardize my technology. So I will start what I need. I need AI, machine learning, big data for the time being, and cloud computing. Let me start with this. And I'll start bringing the companies who have AI and machine learning labs, and I start working with them. Infrastructure, how can I make saving? Servers, databases, network, licenses. Cloud, your question is cloud. Go to the cloud. All this will be saved. It will be wiped out from your budget. Tools, what tools do you need? I need an RPA tool. I'm standardizing things. Use RPA for all your automation process. Low-code platform. Why you spend time programming and coding? Use low-code platform environment. Integration platform. Everything is everywhere scattered. Use integration tool to put everything in one place, like middleware platform, like IBM, TIBCO, and all these things. The tools, the development tools. You know that there is something called DevOps or DevSecOps. These are strategy, by the way. This is not, of course, it's a tool, but it's obviously it's a strategy that we need to follow now. DevOps is the latest strategy used for development. And then I need to think what I need to do as an in-house for my development and what I need to outsource. There are lots of things. As I said, cloud, outsource it. Why you spend money on it? You need to allocate the proper people, the business project managers, using as I said, strategy. That cybersecurity is very important over here. The management, why I'm saying at the beginning, it's a mindset. You need to let the management allow you and put a proper strategy. You need, see, what I noticed, why things are not moving, because there is no project management office. This is very obvious everywhere. Lack of proper movement from this stage to this stage because you do not have management for your projects. There is no fast and effective decisions. Mindset, as I said, motivate the staff. Show them that if they move, see Google and Apple and these companies, how they are moving. I believe Brother Muhammad, he saw how Google by sparing coffees and playgrounds for their stuff and all these things. Of course, because they have lots of money. But even we can do such things and motivate our staff, motivate our people, either from the development side, the fintechers, or even from the banks or the organization themselves. The opportunities are big. As I said, if I have to talk about Industry 4.0, I will never finish. But I try to say most of the things available in the market, most of the things, the opportunities that are available in the market. If you think about AI, and Industry 4.0, there are lots of opportunities. It's impacting our life now. Smartphones, social media, e-commerce, autonomous vehicles, navigations, banking, finance sector itself, how much it's impacted by, it should be impacted. Smart homes, Internet of Things. There are lots of solutions for that. It's just you need to make sure who should take you from where you are to that road. Banks themselves, they cannot do it. FinTechs by themselves, they cannot do it. Technology driven, they cannot do it by themselves. Consultant, it's all one team. As I said at the beginning, if you want those big giants to be out of your road, they all need to collaborate, work together, and split the cake. That's fine, no problem. But it will guarantee you the sustainability of your business for the future. Thank you very much. Sorry, I just took some time on this. I apologize.
No, most welcome, brother, because this is shows that you're passionate about different kind of technologies, all related with each other at the end.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's we close to the end of the panel. As I want to take last messages. If you would like to include last messages, your advices to the governments, regulator bodies, banks, managements, or startups, what should be what you see, and what should be some easy steps, even they cannot see, or they see it they cannot do, or at the end will be somehow. Yani, so let them, if it your advisors, your experience, under your experience lights, please give some advices to these bodies as well with your conclusions.
Thank you very much. I do believe that 2020 was a tough year on all. And I'm recovering from 2020. I think 2021 is going to be much better year, and it will slowly get better. Hopefully by the summertime, things will be much better for everybody. If you look at the fintechs, as I said, I'm going to talk about the three parts: the fintechs, the banks, and the regulators. If you look at the fintechs, I think that the big fintechs actually benefited out of 2020, and they have done extremely well, especially if you look at fintechs such as payments, because everybody is now paying digital because they're not moving around. Some fintechs that involved with the delivery of products and or whatever, they actually, anything that has to do with remote services, they benefited out. The small fintechs that was relying on funding to survive, and they did not have a big user base and all that, because the funding became a little bit scarce. You can see that they are struggling. In the region, there was some good deals on the fintechs and the funding front. Some new fintechs came surprisingly in the last 6 months. So I believe in our region, we still moving, but we still less than 2% of the worldwide fintechs. So we have a long way to go to actually empower those fintechs to be part of the economy. The second part is the banks. The banks, they have to continue. I know 2020 kind of like put an urgency on changing the culture and the digital transformation and all that. I believe they need to continue with that path, with focusing, instead of focusing on technology, they have to focus on use cases. They have to focus on what they want to do and then figure out how the technology to do it. Instead of saying, I want this and the technology and this technology, and this, they should say, I want to do this for my customer. And based on that use case of what they want to do for their customer, plug in the right technologies to actually do that use case. And they have to partner with the right vendors and the right technology partners. They cannot do everything in-house. I can see a lot of people trying to do a lot of things in-house, and then they end up hitting the wall. The third area I want to basically talk about is the regulators. I think our regulators have to increase the knowledge. With the exception of 2 or 3 central banks and regulators, I found that the knowledge of what's happening in the Industry 4.0 is very, very low, and they need to increase their knowledge in that so they can actually serve the ecosystem in their country. They need to work with fintechs. They need to work with banks very closely and kind of lit up some fire under these banks, because I think now they are more of the protector, and they need to actually move into more the force that help collaborate between the different parts. So just talking about the 3 areas, this is my advice and how to move forward in 2021. Of course, as long as I'm gonna finishing up, I would like to thank you for the time and thank for the interesting discussion.
Most welcome and shukran, and thank you, Mohammed Bey, for all your sharings. And then now, as a conclusion speech, we want to listen Ahmed Bey, and shukran also Ahmed Bey.
Thank you very much, Mustafa Bey. Thank you very much. I want to add actually on what Brother Muhammad said as well. I mean, we are aware that fintech investment was 10 years back, it was like 2 billion. If you go back and see the studies, you will see this, it was only 2 billion. Nowadays, from 2017 or 18, it became 30. Now it's more than 40 or 40 something billion, the investment in the fintechs. China and India are the most growing markets in the whole globe. Now, how we can, and I will not talk about the Industry 4.0 and all these things, because these are the futures, but how you invest in them, this needs a strategy. You need to bring the consultant to sit with them and see how I can move from here to here. Now, but what fast things that they can do and work with the fintechs to move to that stage. Now is the right time now. For example, they can establish digital-only banks to rebundle the services using open banking APIs. As Brother Muhammad said, the regulators are giving us now these options of open banking, and they're giving you the APIs for that. Use, for example, change the payment method, for example. Use cardless, QR payments, use the QR payments for everything for your bank. Don't get rid of these material things. Contactless payments, we do have it now. Virtual card, as I said. The bank need, this is very important, they need to partnership with the technology firms, especially the fintechs. Blockchain is the future. As I said, WeChat, Google Chat, Apple Pay, Alipay, these are there. They will come and they will attack you so hardly within few years. If we did not collaborate, the banks and the financial institutes and even the other institutes with the fintechers and the technology firms, then I cannot say the future, I cannot predict the future, but it will be like Nokia and Kodak. Yani those, they were the giants of the business at their time, but see where are they now? They are vanished. So focus on these things. Focus on the blockchain, the big data, analytics. This is the future. You can hire the fintechers or those who have the AI labs and try to get out of opportunities from the data, not from the application, from the data themselves. Where are the opportunities? Where are the businesses? Use unique strategies. Though, as I explained in my previous talks, cybersecurity is a very important element here. You cannot work or Industry 4.0 and open your environment without securing it with cybersecurity. At the end, it's when I said at the beginning is mindset. I'll close it with mindset. What does mindset mean? Mindset means you have to accept responsibilities, view problems as challenges, not obstacles. Count the firm as yours. It's not that you are working for it. If we do not spend enough time and the skills over there, then one day this will be vanished. The challenges are very big outside there. They need to be capable of self-discipline, has high curiosity, and they should be willing to spend whatever it takes to reach to that area of comfortable, or at least some safe area. Those who will fail to adopt the new technologies or the new vision or the new mindset, they will be just sitting there at the back seat, watching others, passing them, and they cannot do anything. Thank you very much. Back to you.
All audiences, and later will be some watchers in YouTube to us, as we are pastor community and speaker international people. We want to share our experiences to the market, and if we hope that will be useful for all startups and all professionals in these areas who is caring technology especially. Thank you, Mohammed Bey. Thank you, Ahmed Bey. And this contribution was very important, very valuable. And then see you next our events at people watchers can see us from fastercommunity.com or speakerinternational.com. Shukran and see you, masalama, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Salam alaikum, Muhammad.
Thank you. Thank you.